Good day to everyone, especially to Miss Marielle. We are the Group 3 and we will be explaining about the contextual plane. I am Ernelyn Bonifacio, one of your reporters, and I have here
John Yuri Pascual, also one of the reporters.
and we will be explaining the contextual plane. Now let's proceed to the table of contents. Number 1, we have the infos, which includes the introduction, definition, and history. Number 2, we have here the summary, which involves the conclusion. And number 3, we have the guide, which involves the elements of contextual plane. And number 4, we have the application, analyzing an artwork using contextual plane.
To start off, what is art? Art is beautiful because it represents the emotion of a person and it gives us the freedom to connect to the artwork. Contextual plane focuses on the social, what happens in the society, political, and historical context of the work of art that draws out the attention of the viewer. It analyzes the artwork from a different perspective and sources its energy from the social context. The artist conveys his ideas through art and the viewer uses their capability to perceive the correlation of how social issues are carried out through art and be able to interpret its message.
So now let's proceed to the definition of contextual plane. So sources its energy from a social context. Just like what I said earlier, it analyzes the artwork from a different perspective and sources its energy from a social context. Contextual plane is all about the experience and social problems of a person or society that cannot be explained in words. Contextual plane are used by some people known as historians, art critics, and sociologists.
These are the important factors to identify contextual plane. First, knowledge about society's problem, culture, history, economic and political conditions. Broad knowledge about the society's problems, culture, history, and its economic and political conditions are important to identify the contextual plane. With this comes knowledge of philosophies, culture, local, and national arts. We have been strongly influenced by the Western and other Asian cultures from the past that greatly affected our symbolic systems in the Philippines from colors, language, shapes, sizes, and as well as the beliefs of Filipinos. Next.
Before we proceed to the history, I would like to agree with what Mr. John Yuri Pascual said earlier. We are indeedly influenced by the Western and other Asian cultures from the past that greatly affected our symbolic system in the Philippines. Now let's go to History A. In its historical and social coordinates, the work is strongly entrenched in a specific society and time. This was said by Wolff in 1983. The work is examined in the context of its time frame and the prevailing world viewpoints, issues, concerns, trends, and events. It puts the artist inside the field of current controversy. The work may contain allusions or references to historical figures and events and transmit attitudes of support, apathy, or rejection towards them as the artwork conveys aesthetic, religious, social, or political values. Art then isn't worthless. Every work of art contains values of some sort. Now let's proceed to History B.
According to the SBCTC in Lumen Learning, every artwork occurs in a context. To be more specific, every artwork occurs in various contexts. These include historical context, second artist context, third viewing context. Focusing on the former, it depicts the viewing experience, where and how the art was shown or presented, and its effect on the viewers. are also influenced by the context. The context in which an image or artwork is displayed or where we see it is essential to the interpretations we derive from it. Imagine viewing a certain artwork in a museum and viewing the same of it through your digital devices or gadgets at home. As you, as you are directly facing an original piece in a museum, it gives you a different ambience like what the artwork conveys. Unlike at home, we presume that it is still a copy, although it is the identical or the same. Next.
In conclusion, there are four planes of analysis, and the contextual plane is one of them. Basically, contextual planes are all about creating and interpreting art based on human and social implications. The artist tries to express his or her ideas, opinions, and facts related to history, society, or even culture. On the art which can be understood if you situate yourself on the point of view of the artist, and the message will surely break your heart because contextual plane are all about the experiences and social problems of a person or the society that cannot be explained with words. It gives us enough knowledge about the history, the economic, and the political conditions that can open our eyes in the real world. It creates visual connections that enable us to comprehend what the artwork is all about. Next.
Next, contextual plane situates the work in the personal and social circumstances of its products that are meaningful to the artist. It may contain, first, allusions to personal or public events, conditions, and stages. Number two, influences such as persons and literary texts. Third, themes and sub-themes derived from the personal life experiences significant to the artist. And last, biographical data. It plays an important part in understanding the work and its view of reality. Next.
Let's now proceed to the elements of contextual plane. Number one, we have the history and the culture. Number two, we have the author. Number three, its influence. And number four, the reaction. So, this is just a guide for identifying a contextual plane art. Next.
In this part, we are going to discuss the guide question on analyzing using the elements of a contextual plane art, history and culture. First, where was the text written? When was the text written? Is the exact date known or debated? In what cultural tradition or era was it made? How does the style of this artwork vary from the style of similar works of its era, and what does that tell us? Next, how does its style compare with similar art that came from before and after it? And lastly, what has happened to the work in terms of its physical condition or status over time?
Now let's proceed to the author, or the creator of the art piece rather. Number one, who made the artwork? Number two, why did the author make the artwork? Number three, which is the author's target audience? Number four, what was the social status of the artist or the crafts person in its culture? And number five, if the artist is known, is there information about his or her life or even his other artworks or ideas that you can apply to understand the work of art that you are analyzing?
Next is influence. First, what are some political, cultural, or social factors that could have affected the author? And second, what influenced the author to create this artwork? By using these guide questions, we can identify what factors that may have inspired the author to make this work.
So now let's proceed to the reaction. Number one, does the text prompt the readers to a certain action? And number two, What does the reader feel when encountering the artwork? Does she feel sad? Does she feel happy or what? It is all involved in the reaction as a guide question on analyzing. So now we're done with the guide question on analyzing. Let's now proceed to the examples of contextual art.
So here are the examples of contextual plain art. First, The Returning Fisherman by Fernando Amorsolo in 1943. Second, Defense of a Filipino Woman's Honor by Fernando Amorsolo in 1945. And lastly, Filipino Struggles Through History by Carlos Potong Francisco in 1964. We can say that these artworks are contextual plain because the first two are personal experiences, and the third one is public experiences from the past. It is also a known fact that these are events from the past or history.
So now I would like to introduce to you everyone our art that we choose for our contextual plain art, which is the EDSA Power People Power Monument by Eduardo Castrillo. We critique this artwork on contextual plane by the history, author, influence, and reaction. I know that almost everyone here is very familiar with this art, right? So now let's proceed to its critique that would be explained by Mr. Pascual.
So we critique this artwork using the elements of the contextual plane. And as Ms. Ern said, we have subcategorized it. First, history. It depicts an event during the 1986, where Filipinos from all sectors of the society, the young, old, nuns, priests, musicians, are all gathered. Second is the author. The People Power Revolution monument was sculpted by a Filipino renowned sculptor named Eduardo Castrillo in 1993. Third is influence. Commemorates the remarkable willpower of the Filipino people. And lastly, reaction. It is a movement where it marked the location where Filipinos unified to oust dictatorship. Next.
There is no age limit on fighting for your right. The purpose of this monument is to show what power could bring when there is unity. It shows that there is still a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness, as long as we unite together and break the barriers that hinder us from our freedom. It is known that the Marcos was one of the best and also the worst governing body the Filipinos had ever witnessed. The monument also portrays that there is no age limit on fighting for your right. Whenever you are rich, poor, young, or adult, everyone united to bring down darkness and to redeem the freedom that has been thrown away. It serves as an inspiration for today's generation or the millennials that every time that we feel that our freedom is being manipulated by on who is on the high position, we should be brave and unite together as one, because just like what is depicted at the monument, the impossible became possible. When you pass by EDSA, you can take a look at the EDSA People Power Monument that is located on the corner of White Plains Avenue and Epifanio de los Santos Avenue in Barangay Camp Aguinaldo, Quezon City.
So that is the end of our presentation. I hope you all learned something. Thank you for listening. And now the floor is open for questions. Do you have any questions?
If you have any questions, kindly leave it in the comment section, or you can even open your mic if you have questions to us. That's all, and thank you.